Right. You have to decide 10 years before you build a fire station where you think you might want a fire station. You have to decide 5 years before you buy the next piece of equipment what you think the situation is going to look like on the ground and what that piece of equipment needs to look like to make sure that it can be used properly to support fighting a fire.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody. The podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. My guest today is the second person running for Eagle Fire Commissioner. He has a huge background in finance and is a real long-term thinker, which I really appreciated about him. He also happened to be exceptionally positive about all the options that the Eagle voters have to select for Fire Commissioner. He was very complimentary of his opponents, which I found to be exceedingly refreshing, and just did want to highlight that he has different experiences and he has different value sets that he thinks he brings to the table, which makes him the best candidate. But again, I really appreciated talking to him. He had a lot of awesome things to say. I'll let you hear from him. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Clyde Dornier. It's great. Clyde, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So I was really pleased when you reached out to me, specifically because I got through all of the mayoral candidates, well, all of the ones except Captain Mark, and then the city council people, and then the Board of Education people. And at the end, I was like, dude, I think I'm out of time. And somebody mentioned Brian Simpson. Like, okay, let me see if I can get him. Again, a scramble. I didn't know Brian. I had to reach out to a bunch of people, got him in. And then when you reached out to me, I was like, bullseye. Here we go. Right. So got you. And very thankfully, I found a contact for Nate, so he's going to come in on Friday as well. So I will be able to get all the people running for Eagle Fire, which is awesome.
Good. You're going to like Nate. Brian's interview or podcast was great. He's a super fella. I've been really impressed with both of those guys. So I think Eagle's has an opportunity to get a fantastic choice or have a fantastic choice and get somebody in the commission that's going to do a great job.
You know what, man? I so love that you said that. Especially with local races, this is really where the local races in general, and I'm sure you would agree, have so much impact on our daily functioning. And I think a lot of the local elections, not all of the people here, but some of the people in this area, and then of course other areas, have been so taken by this national strategy to just completely lambast and destroy individuals. You realize though, the guy you're saying is like Satan, he lives around the corner and you're going to see him at the store and he's probably not that terrible. Maybe you guys disagree on what to do, but these are honorable people that are attempting to improve the community. So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Most politics is local. People hear the national argument, but most politics is local.
Right. So talk to me. You don't have direct experience in fire districts, right? But you have incredible financial background. Talk to me about your background and what has really led you to want to get involved with Eagle Fire.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Louisiana. I'm one of 4 kids, older sister, identical twin brother, younger sister. My parents were school teachers, raised all 4 of us, and for the life of me, still don't know how they managed to do that and get all of us through college.
So 4 kids and 2 school teachers. So awesome in the summer, but crazy on the daily basis.
Crazy on a daily basis. And yet my father managed to spend a lot of time with all of us. He and my brother and I would go play golf 3 or 4 days a week in the afternoon after school. I mean, I had a fantastic childhood. My parents were wonderful people. I graduated from high school, went to a couple of different colleges. I graduated from LSU with a degree in accounting. Went in the Army for 4 years. Really, really, really loved that. Got out of the Army, went to the food business, actually making hot dogs for Oscar Mayer was the first job out of the Army. Bounced around a few different jobs, went into consulting for about 15 years. And then consulting led me to executive management roles. And The last 10 years of my career was leading, large global organizations, managing finance and budgeting and whatnot for those companies. I've retired 3 times. I'm not good at it. I was retired at the end of last year when my fraternity, Civic, called me and said, "Hey, Clyde, we've got this job. Would you be interested in doing it?" So I've been doing that now for almost a year. It's a lot of fun and kind of gets to the core of my background, which is I'm a lifelong learner and I'm a curiosity junkie, and working with undergraduate young men is a lot of fun. There's a lot of opportunity in that, and then there's a lot of head-scratching moments that go along with working with undergraduate and college men.
Dude, they're monkeys. And I speak about
your
it from my
word, not
personal
mine.
experience, right? I was on the rowing team at Cal, and just thinking about it was man, we were barely, an inch above Knuckledraggers. So working with them on a regular basis, God bless you, sir.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm continually reminded that the fraternity is in great hands because the kids I work with are the leaders of their chapters, and they really are, in spite of doing knucklehead things, sometimes they're actually really bright kids, and we've got a bright future. So,
good.
Yep.
So retired several times, working for the fraternity, helping those chapters. What led you to Eagle Fire?
So I've been talking with my wife now for several years about wanting to get involved. Did I want to do an HOA? Did I want to run for public office? Number of different things have kind of been in my mind. When Gary retired this past summer and there was an opening Eagle Fire, I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I didn't know a lot about the fire department and fire districts when I did it, but I thought it would be a good opportunity for me. I've got a close friend that works with the North Ada County Fire District, and she told me that she thought I'd be perfect for this, for what a commissioner is supposed to be doing, what my background has been, the skills that I bring to the table. She thought it would be a perfect fit. The more I looked at it, the more I agreed. I thought it was, and think it is a perfect fit for my background. So I threw my hat in the ring. There was, long and the short of it is Brian Simpson got the interim role, but I was so enthused by the process and what I had learned and the people that I had met that I decided I would run. And so I have been 1,000% all in, doing everything I can, talking to everybody I can. I've probably met with several hundred people and had conversations about the fire district. I've met with people in the legislature. I've met local officials. I've met fire people from all over the state. I've met other commissioners from other districts. So it's been super fun to get involved with this and to learn about it. As I mentioned before, most politics is local. People don't understand that one of the largest portions of their property taxes actually goes to the fire district. And so there's should be an incentive for people to pay attention. And for me, and I'm one of those that probably hasn't paid enough attention. I was always focused on my career. For me, I think paying attention to that money is super important. And as a citizen, I don't think I ought to be allowed to criticize what the people who hold the offices are doing if I'm not willing to get involved myself. Mm-hmm. So kind of a long way to get to your answer. It's my time to get involved, and this particular position is a perfect fit for my skills. And the things that I think I bring to the table are things that can benefit the commission and the district and the people who live in it.
That's great. One of the things you said is, first off, thank you for attempting to get involved, right? I think that's at the core of what's going to make this community, keep this community as great as it is, and even make it better. It's genuine civic engagement.
Yep.
And, there was a gentleman, he's actually pulled out of the race, but there was a gentleman running for school board that was saying, Jeremy, and he was saying, look, I I've been volunteering. I've been doing these things. I want to run for the school board because I think, he has kids in the schools and he's an engineer, a very bright guy. And it was beautiful because he said, look, even if I don't win, I'm still going to be engaged. And it was like bullseye. This is somebody who really wants to contribute, who wants to give back. They're attempting to contribute and give back in this particular way as a board member, but he's into contributing and being engaged regardless. And it's like, God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I've met with the chief several times. Chief Lewis, incredibly bright guy, by the way. If your viewers want to meet somebody who is really, really good at what he does, they should reach out to him. Really, really super bright guy. But one of the things I've told him is, even if I'm not elected, I think I have something to offer to him in his process of going through and developing a new strategic plan. Sure. That's what I've been doing my entire career. When I met with the union leadership, had a conversation with them and told them the same thing. I think there's opportunities for the union to improve the way it supports its membership. I have some ideas, and I'm happy to help you. So even if I don't get elected, I'm going to have some role in the fire commission and in the fire district and in the people in the fire district going forward. It's kind of piqued my curiosity and my interest, and I'm a curiosity junkie. So I think it's a perfect fit, and I'd like to be the commissioner. But if the voters pick somebody else, like I said, it's going to be a good choice, and I'll help whoever that is succeed as best I can.
That's awesome. You said earlier that you learned that you went in, you didn't know a whole lot, you learned a bunch, and you became very enthusiastic about it. You were enthused by what you learned, right? What did you learn? Because I learn all kinds of things speaking with people, especially in these interviews. And in the moment, I'm like, gosh, that's really interesting. But I don't leave saying, hey, I should get involved with that, right? But you learned a bunch and you doubled down. You're like, oh, this is definitely something I want to be involved in. What was that?
So, the fire district is at an inflection point, if you will, in its history and its development. And the problems that will help it survive going forward are large problems, generally from outside the district, not inside the district. And those are problems that are going to require some really, really thorough, deep thinking and analysis and decision making. And so in my 15, 16 years of consulting, one of the things that allowed me to be successful was being a quick study. Figuring out who to talk to and ask the right questions. And that's what I've done here. And what I've found is the funding model for fire districts in Idaho is broken in a lot of parts of the state. One of them is southwestern Idaho. We're growing much faster than the rest of the state, with the exception of maybe Coeur d'Alene, but Coeur d'Alene's got the same problem that we have. But the state legislature has fixed the budget growth at a top line 3% number. So if Eagle grows at 8% year over year, the fire district can only increase its funding by 3% year over year. If that happens over a course of 10, 12, 15, 20 years, now you've got a significant gap between the population and the money that's actually required to deliver the level of service that people deserve. I mean, you're seeing that right now. The Colchester Fire Station, which is fire station number 4, was slated to be built a while back. It is not yet on the books because of the way the funding mechanism has worked and some decisions that the commission has made in the past. We've got to change the approach for how we spend money and try and get some of those projects fast-tracked. We also need to work with the legislature to change the funding model so that the allocation of property taxes matches the growth, the population growth. Because we can't take the approach like we have with roads in southwestern Idaho, where we've said for the last 50 years, if we don't build it, they won't come, right? Because people are coming to Idaho. People are coming at a significant rate to Idaho, and that's not going to change in, let's say, the next generation, right? We've had a generational problem for the last 20 years of growth. We're going to have that for another 20 to 30 years probably. There's going to be another million, somewhere between 1 million and 2 million people living in Idaho. in the next 30 years. And I think that we have to put strategic plans in place and think strategically about how we're going to develop that growth versus just saying, well, we're going to cap spending at 3% and we'll make sure that people just don't come, because people are coming.
Right. So as a commissioner, is there a mechanism that you have at your disposal that you can start that you could affect that 3% cap? Because again, like if the budget for the Eagle Fire is $1 million, and then it can only go up 3%, that's a $30,000 increase. But again, the problem is population goes from, let's say, 100,000 to 180,000, or excuse me, 108,000. So we're just outpacing if the demands on the budget and the fire are directly proportional to the population increase and go hand in hand, then yeah, like we're going to outpace it. So what is like part of the solution or one of the ideas that you have to resolve that?
So I think that as an individual commissioner, I need to go to the legislature and make the case for why the funding model is broken. Well, the other thing that I would like to do is work with the Association of Fire Commissioners in the state of Idaho. It's basically a group of all the commissioners in all the fire districts in Idaho. And that group needs to be more active in lobbying the legislature to modify the way money is doled out and the increases year over year so it more closely matches population growth and construction growth than just saying there's an arbitrary 3% and that's all you get. So those are the things that we can do that are outside of the commission's control. And as a citizen, I need to probably do that either way. That's part of what my involvement likely will be going forward if I don't get elected. As a commissioner, what we have to do is we have to think about how to spend the money in the most effective ways, right? So rather than waiting, for example, to build a fire station when we have 100% of the funds available, we can take some of the funds that we have available, do a lease purchase agreement with a third party, and fast track the construction of a fire station. It's a different way to view the spending of the money than what's happened in the past. And look, I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm not criticizing the way the decisions commissioners made. They made the right decision for them at the right time. I just would like to see us be a little bit more aggressive and smart about the way people are spending our money, my money. Right. It's my money.
Right. And again, that lease to purchase option is one that essentially the school board was attempting, the plant facilities levy of $500 million. And they were talking about a very similar thing. They're like, listen, we're going to essentially do a lease to purchase. We will get a third party organization to build this school. It's going to be fully functional. Then we'll rent it from them, lease it from them for, I think it was a period of 10 years, and then purchase it, or it will be bought from at that point. But the point is they're not paying any money in the construction phase at all until the building is completely finished. And then obviously they get additional funding from wherever to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So it's I really like the lease to purchase option, especially when you're dealing with things that have a long play out. Because, you pass a bond or something, you're paying interest on that money right away. It's a, 24-month, rollout. So you're not getting the benefit of that money that's getting spent. An interesting strategy. A question for you. Idaho is different. So I moved from California a couple years back, and California did not have caps on how much you could increase. Like, for instance, the fire department. Fire department wasn't capped at how much they could ask for on an annual basis. However, our property taxes with Prop 13 were essentially capped. Your property taxes couldn't go up. Idaho is effectively reversed. So property taxes in Idaho have no cap, right? They can go up to whatever you want, but they limit how much government agencies can ask for or increase budgets on an annual basis, like this 3%. So were we to start asking for more than 3% or get the law revised for, say, the fire district, it's like, okay, don't give me the 3% because we're growing at a greater rate than 3%. Give me like 8% or 10% or whatever increase in the budget you think would be appropriate. Do you think people would be receptive to that, considering they're like, wait a minute, if they get a 10% increase and then like these other people start doing the same thing, say the city government makes the same argument or the school districts make the same argument, because there's no ceiling for the property tax on an annual basis, people might be concerned that their property taxes would spike up. Is that something that you would be worried about, or am I misunderstanding what the strategy would be?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think people are concerned in Idaho about their property taxes. I'd like to see my property taxes go down, frankly.
God, me and you.
Yeah, go figure. But we can't ignore the requirement to invest in emergency services, right? It's unacceptable for you to dial 911 and somebody doesn't show up in a reasonable amount of time. Absolutely unreasonable. So while I believe property taxes need to go down, I also think that we need to apportion the money out based on different priorities. So everybody wants to compete for, a piece of the pie that nobody likes spending money on, in any form or fashion. And I think that it's incumbent upon us as citizens, it's incumbent upon us as commissioners to make the argument that this is worth investing in, that it's worth changing the funding model. Are people going to like it? No, they're not. But eventually, we're going to reach a point where the fire departments in Idaho can't keep up, and it will become unacceptable that they aren't keeping up, and that will make it enough of a priority that something will change. What I'm advocating for is, rather than waiting for it to become so painful that it has to be changed, let's look at it for what it is. Let's collect the data. Let's make the argument, and let's put things in place so that we change it now, or start to change it now, and over time make the incremental changes that have to be made so that we don't have to incur the pain.
Right. It's not a reactionary emergency where all of a sudden response times have skyrocketed, and God forbid somebody passes away because it took 10 minutes to get there instead of 4 minutes, or something of that nature.
Yeah, and in fire, one of the things that has struck me as being particularly interesting is the fact that you're solving long-term problems, right? You have to decide 10 years before you build a fire station where you think you might want a fire station. You have to decide 5 years before you buy the next piece of equipment, what you think the situation is going to look like on the ground, and what that piece of equipment needs to look like to make sure that it can be used properly to support fighting a fire. And what I especially like about this, and think that I have a unique strength in, is that I am a very, very much a long-term thinker. I like the big picture solutioning for a long-term kind of problem. I also like complex problems, and the fire department is dealing with incredibly complex issues right now. How do we get fire stations built? How do we get the right amount of funding so that we can get to 4 firefighters per engine, or per fire truck? How do we get pay equity, or at least as close to equity as we can when we're competing with, the city of Boise and the city of Meridian, who can, take money out of the library fund to pay the firefighters more, right? We don't have those funds, right? We get our money, and we get our 3% increase, and that's all we get. And so I think they're unique challenges that we face. And as I said earlier, I really think we're at an inflection point, and we need the brightest minds involved in trying to figure out what the future looks like. Because it's absolutely unacceptable to me for anybody that lives in the fire district to call 911 and anything but the best equipped and best firefighters show up. Right, it's unacceptable that the best of the best with the best equipment doesn't show up to deal with that emergency.
Gotcha. You mentioned better relationships with the union earlier. Talk to me about that. So,
so I've been dealing with unions in my roles and my jobs over my entire career. I think one of the things in the commercial that we put out, and several of the ads that we've done, talks about my view of firefighters as heroes, and I do think that they are. I think first responders and people who are in the military don't get the recognition and respect that they deserve. I also think that there's a crisis in the firefighting community. Firefighters have a higher suicide rate, have a higher divorce rate, and many other issues than almost anyone else in government service. I'm talking about soldiers, I'm talking about Marines, I'm talking about all first responders, police, whatever. And I think we got to do more to take care of them. In order to do that, we have to work with the union. That's the bargaining representative. That's the structure that's been set up in the state of Idaho. And I think that we've got to work with the union to educate them on what's happening with the money. We need to work with them to let them know that the commissioners and the commission supports their health and well-being and work-life balance and that of their families. And I think we've got to do a better job of listening to what they say and bringing them into the process. Historically, I think that management in America, in Idaho, everywhere has wanted to set up an adversarial relationship with the union or with unions in general. And I just think that's wrong. I think that, and this is probably what makes me a flawed candidate, I actually believe that we should reach across the aisle, sit down with those folks, have a conversation.
Dare you?
I know.
How dare you, Clyde?
Have a conversation with them, find out what they want, what the union wants, and come to some, reasonable accommodation that we can all agree on and support. None of us in this world always get everything we want, ever. And so I think it's incumbent upon us particularly in the situation that the district is in from a funding standpoint where we're getting squeezed, right? Growth is squeezing our money. I think it's incumbent upon us to get everybody involved in the conversation and make sure that we come up with the best solution. But remember, the value is in the debate. The value is not in the answer. The value is in the conversation and the debate and the discussion that airs everybody's opinion and makes sure that everybody has the same level of information to make their decisions. And so I sat in front of the union when they were asking each of the three candidates to come to them for their endorsement, and I told them, I was like, you guys aren't going to endorse me. You're going to endorse Brian. Brian's a union firefighter. Brian's a great guy. I understand why you would want to support him. I think that's great. But you need to know as a union and as membership in the union, as firefighters, that you shouldn't fear a Commissioner Clyde. I am not going to ever take an adversarial position with the union because I think it's beneficial to bring them into the conversation and make them a part of the process.
Right. And I think it is really unfortunate that people go so blanket against unions. And again, in my experience, I did a lot of podcasts with teachers union individuals in California, and that really painted a bad picture of unions, right? It came out that I did this long interview with the president of the teachers union, and she was, very proud that she had, the teachers had gone on strike and they had this resolution and she got the teachers a pay increase. And when you dug down into the details, it turned out that the union had found out that the school district was saving money for what's called refresh. So when you need new books, right, you don't save up and buy books that year because it might be, $4 or $5 million to get new biology books for the entire district. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you save up over a period of years to refresh the books. Well, the union found out that the district had been on a line item deducting like $1 million or something every year, putting it into a savings account for new books. They found out that there was something like $3 or $4 million there. And they're like, you're not a bank. You're a school district. Like, this isn't even an expense. They're like, we're saving this money to buy things. They're like, no. That's our money. So they ended up getting the money. And I listened to this woman say this stuff. And I was like, holy cow, lady. Like, you literally just admitted that you pilfered the book fund like that. And she was like very proud of it. Right. But I don't think that's every union.
It's not.
Right? Like, that's a really specific, crazy case. And, people might look to GM and be like, well, that union this and that union this. Let's go. Okay, but that's a really complex case. GM also did a lot of really bad things. Like anybody who was buying a Pontiac in the early 80s or, what a Pontiac, Plymouth, GM? who Pontiac was GM,
Pontiac,
wasn't it?
GM,
Yeah, right. Like maybe it was good back in the day, not in the mid 80s, right? And that wasn't the union's fault.
Right.
So again, I appreciate that. I think, and again, I don't know, I'm not saying blanket statement, all unions are good, but I think it's important to say blanket statement, not all unions are bad.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And at the core of it, the union is its membership, and that's people. And bringing people into the conversation, I think, is always a good thing, right? The more brains you get working on something, and the more opinions that you have, I think the better solution you come up with. It's funny. There's good and bad in everything. Sure. There's good and bad in unions. There's good and bad in commissioners, right? There's good and bad everywhere. That's a fact of life and a reality that we all have to deal with, and I think that's okay. We're not all supposed to be perfect, right? We all have flaws, and we need to bring those flaws to the table and have conversations and find solutions. Right. The thing that bothers me about a lot of what is happening in America today, and I don't want to start sounding like my grandfather, but a lot of, I think the breakdown that we have is that we don't have people who want to have the conversation. Right. Because having the conversation is hard. That's the hard work. It's easy to sit back and blame and postulate with no data and, don't get into the details, right? Just rail against the system. But the value is in doing the work and getting into the details and getting to know the problem as it really exists. Early in my career, I did a class, and it was in statistical process control, and they said, in God we trust, all others require data. And I absolutely believe that in the work of the commission, we have to be responsible for making sure that we have absolutely the best data, and it's data that people can understand, and that we share it and communicate it, and from a common set of data, figure out what the best solution is for everybody. We all come to conversations with things that we want, that we'd like to have. Those things are all different, and the value, frankly, in America, it's what makes us great, has always been in the compromise. That's how we get things done.
Right.
So,
you've kind of put me in an odd spot here, because you're so fair to the other candidates. It's like that they're great guys, and I think you're absolutely right. I think Eagle residents have a tough decision to make, but
a good one, right? The outcome is going to be good. Yes,
a good one. So, what would be your pitch then to the Eagle residents, saying, "Hey, look, I'm Clyde. I'm admitting you picked my competitor, you picked my opponent. He's a good pick, but I would be a slightly better pick." Because
I think I bring several things to the table. One, I have a history and a career of bringing people together, being able to facilitate conversations and get to solutions. I think that's very important. I do think the other guys will probably be able to do that. I think that I'm better at it based on my background, based on the work that I've done and my experiences. I think that I'm an ideal strategist. The district is at a point where it needs to start thinking about what's going to happen 15, 20 years ago. It's time to update the strategic plan. And they call it this standard of cover, which is the way the fire department views their service delivery. And I think that it's time to update that. The chief wants to work on that. That's one of his priorities, and I'm probably better suited to support that than anybody else. The third thing is I've spent my entire career doing budgeting work, either helping clients develop their budgets or managing my own department budgets that I've had. I'm probably as close to an expert on budgeting as you're going to find. And I know that was three things, but I thought of a fourth, so I'm going to throw it in. The fourth thing is I have the time. Brian is a full-time firefighter, great guy, but he's at that point in his career where he still is in a career and working. Nate's in the same position. I actually have the time to do this as close to full-time as I can. It's not a full-time job. The expectations actually are very low. But for me, because I don't know fire, my expectation for myself is that I'm going to be working pretty much full time, or as near full time as I can be, to try and learn how fire works. Right? I got the money piece. I need to understand the nuances of firefighting and the nuances of the Eagle Fire Department. And so I think those four things make me different and from the other guys, and I think make me uniquely qualified.
That's awesome. Clyde, listen, I really appreciate you coming in today. I appreciate you reaching out. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I have a couple other things I want to talk about off air.
Okay.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the effort you're putting in. Not just the campaigning, but the sentiment that, hey, things are good. Let's make them better. We have good options, and you have very key strategic benefits you feel over the opponents. Beautiful. But again, no matter what, the Eagle residents are going to get a good option.
Yeah. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We're a down ballot race in an off year, off election year. We don't get a lot of attention. Right. All of us are kind of unknown. So I appreciate you providing a forum for us to, get out and tell people who we are, and give them the information that they need to make a decision on what I think is a pretty important race. So right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Clyde, for coming in, and we'll catch you on the next one. This podcast is brought to you by mtustudios.com. If you are looking to start a podcast or make content for any level of your business, MTU Studios can help. Just reach out to us today and we can start shooting tomorrow.